Welcome back to another episode of In the Foxhole. I'm your host, JC.
And I'm Angela.
And we are excited today to have a real good friend of ours, John. John, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here with you guys.
And I've known you for years now, and I probably know how to say your last name, but I don't want to butcher the last name like people have
I was
butchered mine for
wondering.
years.
I never say anyone's last name on my show. Just for
It
that
felt really
reason.
awkward to say John for a second. I'm like, well, I could say it and just mess it up, but I'm probably going to get it right. But Karmazan? Karmazan.
Yeah, everybody always gets the ending. They either go high, low, somewhere. So it's Karmazan.
John Karmazan, welcome to In the Foxhole. It's a pleasure to have you.
Awesome. I'm excited, man.
Awesome. Well, hey, I know a lot about you. Angela knows a little bit about you, but some of our viewers may not know anything about you. So why don't you give us a quick glimpse into the life of John and your company and tell us a little about yourself?
Sure. So my journey sort of started back in the early 2000s. I was in the construction industry. My background is primarily in the general contracting world, in the commercial construction space. Out of college, I got a job with a really, really great company, fantastic family-owned company. They taught me a lot about just the values of business and, how to treat your customers, how to treat your employees. They were transitioning into their third generation of the family business, which, as it goes today, is a really an incredible feat. So I really, really am just thankful for my time there and how I got, how God placed me there in that time of my life. It was obviously setting me up for where I'm at now and today. But I spent about almost 10 years in the commercial construction industry. And after, during the 2008, 2007 kind of crash, it didn't really hit the commercial world until 2009 in the construction industry. But at that point, everything I enjoyed about it just became a nightmare. I was constantly subcontracted about 80% of the projects. And in my 20s, I was managing $20 to $30 million worth of construction projects, which looking back is crazy. If I were to hire a 20-year-old and I'd be like, I don't know if this is a great idea. What the heck is this? But so again, thankful for their confidence in me, but I was successful. I mean, I ran the job successfully, kept them on schedule, on budget. We made a profit, but once the economy turned, all I was doing every single day was negotiating contracts and just literally begging people to come execute their contracts. And it burned me out. I was in my late 20s at that point, and emotionally, I felt like I wanted to retire because I was just done. So I always sort of had this entrepreneurial spirit, I guess you could say, within me. During college, I had these little side hustles and things. I'd make little tchotchkes. I say tchotchkes, but I'd make things and sell them online. And there were all these little forums, there's before Facebook groups, there was forums for this and that. I was selling stuff in there, and I always had that entrepreneurial spirit. And then one day it sort of everything just came crashing down and broke for me. And I needed to find something else. I needed an out, because this is where I was at was not where I couldn't sustain that any longer. So long story short, to kind of come full circle to where the industry and business that I'm in today, I ended up getting this power washer, and a guy that I work with actually at the construction company was going to throw it away. And he's like, hey, I know you like to fix things up. He's like, if you could get this thing working, you can have it. Great. So went out, started blasting the green algae off the side of my house. And I was like, oh, this is actually pretty fun. It's satisfying. So I went out back and started taking care of the deck. And then halfway through the deck, it completely blew up, and it was unfixable. The unloader blew up and it was a mess. So I'm like, okay, well, I got to finish this project. Go inside, go on Craigslist to search for a replacement power washer. And as I'm scrolling through the listings, I see this commercial power washer for sale will train you to start your own business. And I was like, wait a second, people actually, this is a business? Like I had no idea. So I enjoyed it. I was like, well, this is interesting. So it was that sort of like the door cracked open a little bit and I went in to investigate a little more. And lo and behold, I think it was probably a month or two later, created a business plan, submitted for an SBA loan, got approved. We got the papers, bought the truck from the guy. He trained me how to clean some concrete, and we were in business. We were power washing. That was back in 2012 in October. And in hindsight, just that entrepreneurial, hey, let's go and figure it out. Like, I have no idea what we're doing, but we'll figure it out along the way. Looking back now, I'm like, that was really dumb to start a pressure washing business in Pennsylvania in October. But, hey, I was still technically working part-time for the construction company. So I kind of had a little bit of fallback to get me through the winter there. But yeah, so that's how we started the power washing company. 7 months after that, I ended up just from hustling and, grinding, got enough business that I could leave my full-time job at the construction company. And, we were out on our own, just going full-time. I still remember we were going to my daughter's birthday party at Chick-fil-A. I left the office of the construction company that day to go to their party. And right before I left, the manager there said, okay, so next Friday is going to be your last day with us, right? And I'm like, I guess so. Like, I was not ready to let go of that safety net, but we did it. And I remember walking in and saying to my wife, Michelle, I'm like, so next Friday is my last day and we're doing this thing full time. And she's like, she literally looked me in the eyes and she's like, okay, let's do it. So having the support of my wife was awesome. And not just seeing her and panicking, wait, are you serious? She had the confidence in me and in us as a unit to be like, we got this, we can figure this out. So fast forward now, this is our 11th year now. We just finished, or about to finish. And it's been great. I mean, we've built a fantastic team around us now. My daily involvement in the business is pretty minimal. I'm there more of a CEO position, the visionary, just trying to align everybody to the ultimate goal here of where the company needs to go, which is that's my strength. I suck at executing. I'm a terrible integrator. So I'm finally gotten into my sweet spot here and I'm really enjoying the company again. So that's the company. I do some coaching as well, and consulting. So, really enjoying that. I love pouring back into other people and I love looking at other people's businesses, because it feels like I could fix that. Here's all you have to do. But within your own business, right? You look at the exact same thing and it's like, I don't know what to do. It's the exact same problem, but when it's somebody else's business, it's so clear, right?
Yeah.
But no, it's a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed working with people, and building the relationships with them and helping them. Seeing those light bulb moments go off for them when you work with them is that's the most rewarding thing ever.
Well, great story. Great, lesson for somebody to look at you as a young 20-year-old and have the confidence in you to come onto their team. And I'm sure that built so much leadership skills and everything else to help mold you to be the person you are today to do the same for your team.
Yeah. Looking back at that, it was pretty intimidating. I was 23, 24, sitting in a room of all these people that were older than me and had way more experience than me in the construction industry. I mean, some of these superintendents that we were working with, I mean, they were rough dudes. And it was very intimidating, but I had the support, the people that were around me, they supported me. So I knew that they had my back, and that gave me the confidence then to go in and just look, it's black and white. That's really what it is. Thankfully construction, the stuff's on the plans and it's in the specifications. This is it. So there's no emotions that need to necessarily be involved in it. It's pretty black and white. And that's sort of what I hung the hat on most of the time, is just be like, look, it's right here. So, and most of the time the people were like, all right, well, this kid knows what he's talking about. He's right. And if it came to the point where I wasn't, I knew the other guys had my back. So yeah, I'm very thankful for my time there for sure. And like I said earlier, you know, they've instilled a lot of really good, I'd say wisdom and leadership lessons that I definitely took with me into my businesses now.
That's great. And I love your story of getting into like stumbling at the right opportunity, you know, and open doors, walking through that open door of, you had that itch of entrepreneurship. And I think a lot of people do and don't necessarily know what the avenue will be or what the gate will be, what business to start. But when, you know, just a tiny crack, as you described it, open, you're like, hey, what's this? And able to run down that. Before we go into some of the foxhole moments, some of the struggles, why don't you share with us a win that you're celebrating in this season?
So we've got a couple things. I mean, I think probably the biggest one for this year for me, it's both personal and business, is we hired a COO for our company. And that has been a phenomenal experience for me. It has really, like I mentioned earlier, has allowed me to really sort of sit in that visionary role more so than ever before. And to have somebody of that capacity on our team, like it's like having a coach like that works for you, that's within your team and is like coaching the rest of your staff. And it's just been a phenomenal experience. So that has been, you know, and JC knows this story, but like just over a year ago, back in September, we were in Tennessee together and at an event, and we're sitting down and we're brainstorming this stuff, planning out what the next year is going to look like. And I'm like, you know, I was like, I need to hire a general manager, because that was like the buzz, like, oh, all right, next step is we need to hire a general manager. And I think at the point, like at that time, he's like, John, you've been talking about this for like a year, like just freaking do it already. And I was like, that's what I needed to hear though. Like, I appreciate him just like challenging me on that, because he's right. Like, I had been talking about it for way too long and just not taking action on it. So I started putting the pieces together to make it happen. And then in January, had another conversation with Josh Taylor, actually, in Maryland. And he was in the process of hiring a CEO. And I was like, and just hearing his logic, I was like, yeah, you know what? You're right. That makes so much more sense. And his explanation was like, look, I want to grow the company like beyond what I'm necessarily maybe potentially capable of doing. And by hiring a manager, a general manager, like I'm just going to get more of the same, essentially. Like you are the bottleneck of the growth of the company at that point. Whereas if you hire somebody who has that like next level skill set, who's been there and done that and maybe scaled something already, or has worked for a much larger organization and knows like what the next step is for you to grow and get past sort of the bottleneck that you're experiencing right now. And after hearing that, I'm like, well, shoot, yeah, I actually don't want a general manager. I want somebody like that. So once I sort of internalized that and realized that's actually what I needed and what I wanted, I put the ads out for that and started searching for that person. So, you know, how I ended up finding that person, we can go into that if you want, because I think it's a pretty cool story. But, you know, that to me was like a massive win, because it did many things. Obviously, it's helped my business. It's provided me additional free time. I actually enjoy, because I started feeling burnt out in the company, like, because I was wearing too many hats. Like, as our company grew, like I was the bottleneck and everything was coming to me ultimately in one aspect or the other. I mean, I've got an operations manager, I got an office manager, I've got, you know, lead sales guys. Like I have these people, but like ultimately when those people had questions, they would come to me. And I I felt like I could not progress and bring the company any further because I was more reactive than I was able to be proactive. So bringing Aaron on has really freed me up to really fulfill that visionary role of looking ahead and being way more proactive than reactive.
Yeah, it's funny, like you said, as we start the company and we grow it, we don't really think about all these things. And as a visionary like yourself and Angela and myself, we need that integrator in our life as we grow the company, because we're sitting there trying to think of everything, execute on everything. We can't execute on 100 things perfectly, and sometimes we only get half of it done anyway. So hiring that key role, that person that's been there someplace else to help you push yourself even further and coach you along is instrumental in bringing success and happiness back into your life for your company, but also for your team to be able to provide support for them.
Yeah, it's been, I love, like, it was just such an incredible feeling to have a conversation with him in the first, maybe after the first 30, 40 days, and like talk about something. And he's like, okay, I got it. And he just goes and he takes care of it and he does it and he executes on it. And I'm like, this is something that's been rattling around in my head that I've wanted to do for the last like 2 years. And we just had a conversation and you go do it. And like within a week, it's executed and it's implemented. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so great. Okay, how many more things can we talk about now that I've been wanting to deal with? So yeah, so we've had this running list that we've just been tackling and like chipping away at. And it's been, it's been a process, obviously. He hadn't been familiar with the industry at all. So he's learning a lot about the ins and outs of the seasonalities and whatnot. But now that he's really kind of gone through a full cycle and understands like how the industry works and what the seasonality swings are and everything else, like, man, it's awesome. And it's good. It's cool to have an outside perspective of somebody who doesn't know the industry, right? Because they come with a fresh set of eyes, like bring experience from other industries that can translate over to. So I had some of that experience too. So that was great.
So I'm going to pull an audible because you talked about hiring Aaron, talked about what a cool story it was. And I think it's something that's worth sharing. So why don't you share that real quick? Because
Sure.
I've heard it several times, but it really is a great story to share for those looking to hire right now.
Sure. Yeah. So I'll try to keep it a little concise, but so I created this, job ad that we put out on Indeed, and was hiring for a COO, Chief Operations Officer, because I needed more of an implementer than a like executive, like visionary, because I'm the visionary. I didn't need another one of me. I needed an executor and implementer. So decided to go with the COO. And the very first person that responded to that job ad on paper was like a dream. I'm like, this guy's too good to be true. Like his experience was in facility maintenance industry, like everything lined up. Like he was taking companies from, 10 million to 100 million, like just crazy, like way bigger than, and I'm like, okay, this is what we need. Like I need somebody who's way bigger than I can even imagine. So the guy came into our office, met with him, ultimately didn't end up working out, right? Probably for the better in the end, obviously. But it was a great experience having those types of conversations. We brought our team in to that meeting when he came in. We brought our leadership team in because, look, he's going to be part of the leadership team. We want to make sure everybody, like nobody got this weird vibe, like, I don't know that I'm going to be comfortable working with this person moving forward. So we did that through all the processes, but that guy didn't work out. Next guy, we got a little further along in the process, right? We presented him an offer. We really liked him. Really, really liked him. He met, like, lined up culturally across the board. Our team really, really liked this guy. Ultimately, it wasn't going to work out because of a commute issue. Like he was like an hour and 45 minutes away and they had just bought a house. Like he was going to try to make the commute work, but it wasn't ultimately going to happen. But during the Zoom call that we had, when he told us that it wasn't going to work, he had asked me the question, like he said to me, John, why are you hiring? Why do you want to hire me or somebody for this position. And I thought about it for a second, and my response was basically like, I have realized over the last couple years, you know, similar to the story I shared about the general manager and like needing somebody that's been there and done that before. You know, I said, I'm realizing that I am currently the bottleneck in the company, and I need somebody to come in that has been there and done that, has grown and scaled at multiple locations, all the things we're looking to do. And I need somebody on my team that has done that, because I am restricted. I cannot accomplish that as quickly as I want to right now. And he just kind of paused for a second, and he's like, John, I think you need to update your job ad right now and put exactly what you said to me in your job ad, because that's going to resonate with somebody. And I was like, okay, I never really thought about that, but okay. So as soon as we hung up, I went on Indeed, updated the job ad, and I put that, like paraphrased it, but put it in bold underneath. It was the second paragraph. I put that in bold. And the very next person who responded to the ad was Aaron, the guy we hired. And he wrote a cover letter and he referenced that paragraph. And he said something to the effect of like, this paragraph spoke to me, and I know what you're experiencing right now, and I've been through it, and I've gotten to the other side, and I want to help you. Like, I am so excited to talk to you, because I can literally like remember what I'd gone through is exactly what you just described. So like, it was just such a cool, like how that all kind of came together. And just, again, though, it kind of goes back to like, I could have wrote that other guy off and been like, that's a stupid idea. Like, why would I do that? You know, but I'm so glad I did. And look, it's worth a try. But it was awesome. When I saw that cover letter from Aaron and he like literally referenced that paragraph, I was like, holy cow, you got to be kidding me. Like, so cool.
I honestly just got chills talking about that, because you put the human effect into that Indeed ad, because now they're reading about you personally, not just the black and white, like looking for to hit all these qualifications, these wickets, and must do this, must do that. No, you said I need help, and this is what I'm looking for.
Yep. Yeah, put out an SOS, man. I needed it.
That human element, and he already wanted to come and be a part of the team and do that. And yeah, you described so many emotions in this whole process, and it is, I mean, we know as fellow visionaries what magic it is when you do find that integrator. That it isn't just the business. I mean, you were had identified you were a bottleneck in the business, and it will take the business to a new level. But the thing that it does for you, just as an individual, as a human being, the weight lifted, I think it was Ryan Lee that described it as when we have to, and there are so many times when you're building a business up until this phase that you have to act in an integrator role, not just the visionary, but you're being an integrator. And like you said, you're entering this burnout stage, because the longer we have to live in that role, it feels like this multiple personality disorder, and we just don't like it. And we don't like the business, and we don't like our lives, and we're not fun to deal with. And so I think
miserable. when you're not living in your zone of genius or your happy place, to kind of put it a little second grade level, but like really it can be miserable, and you can burn out really, really fast.
And your team suffers with you.
Yeah. Because they can see it, they can sense it and feel it, right?
All right, John. So we've talked about some really fun wins for you, your team. We talked about a fun win for your family offline before this. World travel with your family across the United States, overseeing the fun stuff like that. And oftentimes that's what we're talking about, is all the good moments, the highlights, the good times. But as you talked about briefly earlier, during the crash 2008, that was a low moment in your business or your career. Can we talk about something maybe that's happened in the pressure washing or light industry where it's just you were down, you were in the foxhole, maybe ready to quit, get out, just switch over to some type of other business? Who was there with you, help you get out of there, and what did you learn from that?
So, thinking about this, I think there's two moments I can kind of think back to. and one's business and one's personal. And I think the personal one is probably more impactful. At least I think it had a bigger long-term impact on us. Was realizing that we had dug ourselves in a massive, massive hole of debt. And this was after we had started the business. So I guess technically, it is tied into that. But this was more on the personal side. It wasn't really affecting me. I mean, I guess it was on the business side of the equation, but on the personal side, we, and I've shared this because we've gone through the Dave Ramsey program. We were on his show, and, praise the Lord, my family and I got to go down to Nashville. It was actually 5 years ago, just last week. We got to go down on his radio show and scream we're debt free. But we had dug ourselves into $163,000 of non-mortgage debt that we had. And it got to the point where years prior to that, before we started the business, we short sailed on a home that we owned. And I don't know how, but we got out of that pretty well unscathed. But it was like an emotional, just kicking the nuts, really. And, as a man and the leader of the house and the leader of the family, to feel like we I kind of let my family down, was like, oh man, how are we going to dig out of this now? So we kind of came to, my wife and I sort of we came together on this, and we're like, we got to do something. And she'll tell you, I'm not going to share this to make it sound like I'm throwing her under the bus, but I wanted to do something about this sooner than she did. She didn't realize it was a big enough issue, but finally, one day she came to me and she's like, I think we should do the Dave Ramsey Financial Peace University. And I was like, thank you. Finally. Okay, let's do this. So we ended up going through the class because we ended up facilitating it. We led the class because we're entrepreneurs and there wasn't anything that fit our schedule. So we're like, we can figure this out. We'll just do it on our own. So we ended up facilitating this class, and there was we did it at our church. We had no idea what we were doing. We had no idea how many people would show up. There was about 45 people that came to that class, the first session we did. And when we went through part of the program, you have to go through and write down how much non-mortgage debt you have, how many credit cards you have, and how much money you have in savings at the very first class. And it's all anonymous. It's just numbers on paper. But when we collected all that information collectively in the group, it was over $1 million in debt. It was 300 credit cards, and the total number of savings was $80,000 between 45 people. And I was like, okay, one, we're not in this alone. But two, I don't want to be normal. I don't want to be like this for the rest of my life. So we're going to make a change, and we're going to not make sure this happens again, or we're going to make sure this doesn't happen again. So we put our head down. It took us 29 months, but we were able to scratch and claw and pay off all that debt. And we got to celebrate by going down to Nashville and doing our debt-free scream on the Dave Ramsey show. And then, a little bit after that, we were able to just keep our heads down and keep going. And we ended up paying off our house. It's not a massive house. It's a pretty small little ranch home, but our house is free and clear. So that was living under the burden and that pressure of debt. Debt, people respond differently to debt. And obviously I've learned that. We've since led that financial peace class. I think we just finished our 8th one a couple of weeks ago that we led at our church. So that's how much of an impact it had on us. So we want to just obviously keep paying back. So, but obviously debt impacts, and people respond differently to it. But for us, it was one of those things that, from a personal perspective, now I'm not talking business now, just personal. having that, it literally felt like a weight on my shoulders every single day that I woke up. And it hindered my creativity, it hindered my sense of freedom. And that burden that I was carrying around with me all the time, like, it may not have looked like it, but it was affecting my decisions and how I was carrying out things on the on business side, my ability to help somebody out, whether it's with my time or limited finances at the time. So, you know, we just made a pact and we said, look, we're not going to live like this. We don't want to set this example for our kids either. We didn't ever, growing up, we never had conversations about money in my family. And I'm not mad about it, but seeing, you know, looking back and being like, man, had we had those conversations, maybe we could have avoided some of this. But it's all part of our story now, and I'm thankful for it. So, you know, all this sort of to come full circle, I think, you know, we were kind of quiet about it. Like, we put our heads down and we were just plugging away and we were paying this debt off, and our kids were involved in the process. We had this, actually, the room behind me, or the room that I'm in right now, this used to be all like wood paneling in here and storm windows and a concrete floor. And when we were paying the debt off, we made this little paper chain out of construction paper, and each link in the chain represented $1,000 of the debt that we had. And we literally hung it up on where the ceiling met the wall. We hung it up there, and it went almost all the way around this room. And every time we paid off $1,000, the kids get to go out and they get to cut a link on the chain. So, like, thinking back to the impact that had on our kids, it's totally worth it.
Yeah, I mean, such an amazing story. Some people love Dave Ramsey. Some people, you know, differ with him. I've listened to Dave for years, and you know, I've heard your when you're on with Dave, and that was such a cool experience to be able to see you do that with your family out there. But that financial burden that you had on yourself, I mean, that, like you said, it was holding you back from greatness, being able to do other things because you're so worried about how we're going to pay the next bill or what are we going to do next for that. But now that's not a burden. And now you're that voice for others to say, hey, you don't need this debt. We can get you through this. And you said 169,000, was it?
163
in less than 3 years. That's insane. That's like, I mean, that is just, like you said, just head down, just grinding into that. And had you not had the buy-in from Michelle too, because that's so super important.
Oh yeah.
You know, how much longer you might still be paying that off right now. Who knows? But that's so incredible. Not only did she, when you started your entrepreneurial journey, she said, yes, let's do this and do this. And then she said, yes, let's do this. It just makes it so much easier when you're, you know, working as a team to be able to get through that. So, I mean, just incredible for you, your family, and especially your kids.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, you know, we said no to a lot of things during that time. Right. But they understood why we were saying no. And now we get to say yes to a lot more things. And they're actually of the age now where they can actually enjoy those things a lot more now too. So it's all, you know, it all works out. And I think that the lessons that they experienced through that time is going to pay dividends as they become adults moving forward.
I think the coolest part about that story was having your kids cut the link every time. That's a huge celebration.
Yeah, and part of the win. But what a great story of working together to, you know, a point that just felt like the bottom. Feel like we can't get any more in the bottom, and obviously it is an emotional story of, you know, linking arms with your wife, and like you said, crawling out of that and into victory. And whether it be debt or something else, it is also a lesson of when we really are in the middle of something, that weight, whatever it is, you know, whatever it is that we might be personally struggling with or struggling in the business, that weight affects every aspect of our life. And until we can work our way to a place where we don't feel that weight it's going to affect everything we do and every decision that we make.
Yep, 100% agree.
And debt can be good and bad. It depends how you leverage it too, especially
I
for
agree.
business. And just being financially smart about it too. But another huge part of this is how many lives you've impacted since starting that. I mean, you said you wanted to do it. There was nobody doing it. So we're going to do it for ourselves and for our church. And now you've been continually doing it for the last 5 years. And I can't imagine like the impact you've had on your community right there.
Yeah, it's the last one that we just finished up was really cool. We actually took a break for about 1.5 years, almost maybe 2 years. Yeah, because I don't think we actually did one before COVID, like right before COVID. The fall before that, I think, was the last one we did. So it'd been almost 3 years since we've done one. And this last one we did, one of the people that went through it came up to me at the very end of the last class and said, like, we've actually taken this class before and we appreciate the genuine nature that you approach this, because we can tell that you have been through it. Like, just the way your emotions came through in talking about it, and like, we can tell you lived this. Where the last class we took, we feel like it was just a facilitator up there just reading a book, like, and she said, like, it was so much more impactful. But she's like, because I could feel that connection of the emotion, and I could relate to it from the times that they're struggling with right now. She's like, so I know that when you say that, like, you genuinely have experienced it and know what you can relate to what I'm going through right now. So it was just awesome to hear somebody like verbalize that, because it's true. Like, until you've gone through it and been down in the dirt and climbed back through and made it to the other side, like, I tell these people as we're going through it, like, it sucks. Like, that time sucks. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Like, it is some of the hardest struggles you're going to come against. Like, everything's going to seem like it's breaking. Like, the minute you feel like you're making some progress, your freaking transmission's going to go out on your car, or something stupid's going to happen. Your heating and air is going to go out. Like, something's going to happen. It's just what happens. But you got to just persevere through it, put your head down, keep going, because if you don't, you give up. And if you give up, you quit, you lose. The only way to lose is to not quit and just keep going.
Yeah.
And keep going and keep going. And that's what we did. Fortunately, we were able to accelerate it and get through it as quickly as possible. But man, I always tell them, I'm like, it is so much better on the other side. Like, so much better. You don't have to worry about what the next paycheck's going to do. Like, don't get me wrong. We're not sitting on, it's not like we can go out to a 5-star steak dinner every single night of the year. Like, that's not the point of it. The point is to have options. And that's where we ultimately wanted to be, is to not feel burdened by having to pay all these other bills to people for stuff that we bought that we don't need. Or when we were in all that debt, we were paying on stuff we didn't even freaking own anymore. Like, it was gone and we were paying on it. And that was probably the most frustrating. Like, logically thinking about that, I was like, freaking, hey, this sucks. I'm not even enjoying this thing anymore, and I'm still freaking paying for it. Like, what the hell is wrong with me? What kind of stupid decision was that? Like, so, yeah, sorry, I'm kind of going down a rabbit hole here, but, ultimately it comes back to getting out of that burden and that weight to be able to have the freedom and the flexibility to use my gifts, my time, my knowledge, share my knowledge. And now, we could share some of our finances. I love to give back to people who need it. And, Michelle and I actually created a fund in our budget called the Blessing Fund. And we just it automatically comes out of our, from our checking account into the Blessing Fund, just so if we hear that somebody has a need somewhere and we feel led to give, there's money there to do it. So obviously it's had a big impact on us.
Yeah. And I kind of want to stay on this since we're running out of time here soon. Before we jump into another topic, but with two things that resonates from Dave Ramsey, anytime I hear his name, is better than I deserve, and rice and beans, beans and rice. But the way he breaks it down, just to keep it so simple, and has the steps to get to success, and it's small wins too. Just like when we leave a conference or something, we want to celebrate a small win first. We're not trying to go after the biggest thing out there. Wait, or am I backwards on him? Does he want the small ones first or the big ones down first?
Small ones. It's small wins.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So you want to get that because you want to feel good about something. Like, we did it. And even if it's $250 debt you owe, you paid it off. That's a huge win. That's one. All right. Now we're on to the next one. Instead of sitting here like, all right, well, let's pay down the mortgage first. Well, that's not going to happen, in a short period of time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that goes for anything, honestly. Like, you can translate that logic into not just paying off debt, but like, if you're in your business, you're working on some system or process, right, that you want to like get implemented, and you've been struggling with it for a while. Like, it's the emotional momentum that you gain by getting those small wins. Dave Ramsey coined the term the debt snowball, right? That's kind of the logic of paying off the smallest debt, regardless of the interest rates. We'll correlate it back to the math side of debt here, because I think everybody understands that is you pay off, if it's a $250 balance and it's 0% interest, who cares? Pay that off. Like, versus a balance that you have $20,000 on it, 20% interest. Like, the logic side of your brain would say, I'm paying all this money in interest, I need to pay that off first. But it's going to take you a long time to pay that off, and you're not going to get that emotional momentum that you need to sustain to get to ultimately where you need to go. So yeah, I mean, it's the little wins that you need to celebrate those too. And so often I shared a quote yesterday on Facebook, actually, that I heard in a book that I'm reading, and I loved it so much. It's, the definition of an entrepreneur is somebody who's grateful for the progress that they've made while simultaneously frustrated at the rate that they're making it. So like, that goes across the board, I think, for most people. I don't know. I'm an entrepreneur, so maybe it's not, but I feel like, we're grateful for the gap in the gain, right? Like, we're grateful for the gains that we've made, but we're also still, like, a part of us is frustrated, be like, man, I know we're capable of doing way more. So there's always this kind of dichotomy of like struggle of thankful for what we've achieved versus knowing what we're capable of, and like filling that difference there of like, okay, I struggle with this a lot. I really do, of like being thankful for what we have and where we are, because it's all part of our story and the plan that we've, for us in our life. But then there's also this knowing that I'm capable of way more, and like, okay, it's inspiring knowing that I'm capable of way more, for sure. And it drives me to want to do better. But I also have to celebrate and be thankful for the things that I have and have accomplished thus far.
Absolutely.
That's definitely an entrepreneur gap there. That frustration of the grateful for, the celebrating the wins, the grateful for the wins we've done, and yet pushing ourselves to the other side.
And such a great share, because there's others out there, including myself, till, I was in that same boat of debt. Like, when I was younger, I just build up debt, credit card debt, buy everything. It didn't matter. I just, like, one of my biggest financial wins this year was getting rid of a camper that sat in a yard for 3 years that I never got to use. It just sat there. And just to be able to get rid of that thing and just say goodbye to it, that was like, oh my God, like, I can just breathe right now. It's not to see just this lawn ornament sitting there. And now it's on to the next one. So
that's awesome.
But John, thank you so much. I mean, so excited for you, for your family, for your business. Congratulations on Aaron coming on your team this year. I know we're going to see you at Sales Boost next year speaking. So excited for that.
Absolutely.
And
I'm so pumped. So pumped.
What's that?
I'm so pumped for that.
Yes.
We are too.
And plenty of other great stuff coming for you next year. I'm excited to hear more about that. thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing your story with us and our guest today. Do you have any parting words for our guest?
Man, I think whatever you're going through right now, just remember, whether it's a success, a win, or if it's a struggle, like there's seasons in life, and it's, it sounds cliche, but it's true. If you're in a valley right now, there's somebody else on a mountaintop, and vice versa. So just find people that you can surround yourself with, that you can lean on in those times of struggle and when you're in a valley, and that you can celebrate with if you're on the mountaintop, because you need both those people in your life.
Yep.
And ideally, those are the same people that you can both lean on and celebrate. So I'll leave with that.
Well, what a powerful message to leave with. And thank you so much. Thank you for everybody for watching another episode of In the Foxhole. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share, and we'll see you all next week.
Thanks.